there, people of the internet. I guess this video is going to be more or less me talking about a personal preference, but I still feel like it's going to be a fun time, so give me just a minute to borrow your ear while I talk about this. I don't even know if I'm going to put this video up, but I'm going to talk about it. So for the longest time, I'm a military surplus collector. I got just a tremendous number of military surplus guns from all around the world, and all sorts of different calibers. Ranging anywhere from like 6.5 caliber all the way up to, this is a 45-70. Where is it? This over here, that's a muzzle loader. That's a 75 caliber, I think. I haven't actually tested. It's either a 75 or a 69. 1838 is the production on that. Bottom line, I got just a tremendous amount of different things. And I was wholeheartedly convinced that I preferred long rifles over carbines, however it is you feel like pronouncing that. I was wholeheartedly convinced that I preferred long rifles over carbines, and I was running like long rifles just for years and years and years. This right here is a Schmid-Rubin, well, sort of, straight pull. This right is a Swiss straight pull, and this right here is an old school, I think this is their 1889 model, chambered in 7.5 by 53.5. Typically, whenever I fire this thing, I load it with black powder just to go ahead and make sure that I have no issues with pressure. Not only that, but I make my own black powder, and I can load shells with black powder for a lot cheaper than I can load with smokeless. But this is a very long gun, and I do like really long guns, and for the longest time, I thought, like I said, that was my preference. I thought that was my preference because years and years ago, I picked up one of these. This is a Turkish Mauser. I'm not sure how long the barrel on this is, but it is a full-length Mauser in 8mm. It's got a straight bolt handle, and man, this thing is just so nice and smooth and comfortable. And all of the long rifle Mausers... Uh-oh, no, look what I did. All of the long rifle Mausers that I play with, they tend to also be quite smooth and whatnot. Do I have some sort of issue with this magazine well that I have to address? Yeah, I'm probably going to have to address that. I got no idea what happened there. I must have bumped something. I'll go ahead and I'll deal with that later. But I was just under the impression that I really liked long rifles. And don't get me wrong, I do really like long rifles. But I discovered just from years of doing this that I prefer carbines, and it's such a mind-boggling discovery because for the longest time I was like not only telling people but telling myself I prefer long rifles. I want something that has a nice long barrel on it. But then after I got that Turkish Mauser, I went out and I got myself like a Car 98 style of Mauser. This is a VZ 2447, and it had a shorter 24-inch barrel on it, and it was so much easier to lug around and so much handier. And the blast pressure that comes out of this thing really is not that bad for a full power 8mm Mauser cartridge. It's not that difficult to deal with. And then I went out and I got myself this right here. This is a Santa Fe Jungle Carbine, made to look like a number 5, but it's actually a number 1 Mark III. And this is one of my favorite guns of all time. 303 British, 10-round magazine, although I do have this one blocked off to 5 rounds for hunting purposes. But this right here is such a good, light, handy little carbine. The muzzle brake on the front is fantastic. Since this is built off of a number 1 Mark III, it doesn't have issues with a walking zero or anything like that. This is a really good little option for a carbine, and I love it a lot. Like I said, this is one of my all-time favorites. And recently, well, fairly recently, I went out and I got myself this. This is a Lee Metford, also in 303. This used to be a long rifle that was cut down to a shorter rifle. I guess it's a carbine length at this point. But this is a very lightweight, handy little gun that doesn't kick a whole lot because I load my 303 British for this rifle with black powder. Once again, we see that black powder. But black powder with like a 150 to a 180 grain bullet in 303 British, it's not a powerhouse of a cartridge by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still powerful enough to really smack something at the distances that I shoot at. I'm not exactly going to use this as, say, a sniper rifle going out to very long distances, but like within 100 yards, I feel like a black powder 303 would still be pretty gosh darn significant on target. I probably shove, we're gonna call it about 55 grains of black powder inside of that 303 British case, and then seat the bullet down on top of it. And the recoil from that is just not all that significant, and this thing is a real delight to shoot. I'll be honest, it like there is definitely well within the runnings of one of my favorite guns. This one right here is also one of my favorite guns. And after like deciding, hey, that's my favorite, that's my favorite, that's my favorite, I noticed that all these were carbines. This is a Spanish Oviedo Mauser, 1916. It's a 1893 action. This one has been converted to 7.62 NATO, or 7.62 SETME, but that's probably a video for another topic. And I load 7.62 NATO or 308 black powder to fire through this thing as well. I have shot a tremendous amount of smokeless powder 7.62 NATO through this thing, and it works fine. But for some reason, I do not know why, Spanish rifling just handles black powder so extremely well. And this rifle, with that lightweight, light recoiling 308 ammo, is just, once again, an extreme delight to shoot. Let me go ahead and check, make sure we got no rust popping up here. Good. Gotta keep an eye on that now, because this right here is an old gun. The finish on it is quite worn out, and I fire black powder through this thing. But again, we got an example of a carbine over here. Just a short, lightweight, easy to lug around little gun. I have over here in this corner, I have a Steyr M95, and this is a carbine, and this was actually how I figured out that I really like carbines over long rifles, because I went out and I got myself a long rifle Steyr M95, and then the carbines went on sale, and I was like, yeah, why not? It'll be a good representation to compare it to the M95 long rifle. So I got myself a carbine, and I took them out, shot them side by side. And that's whenever I discovered, hey, I really like this carbine. Like, I like it a lot more than that Steyr long rifle. And that's whenever I started going, alright, hold on, what other carbines do I like in comparison to the long rifles? Like, although that's a 93 action, I would take that Oviedo Mauser in 7.62 NATO over the Turkish long rifle in 8mm Mauser. Although 8mm Mauser is a more powerful, more potent cartridge, that is just such the nicer gun to shoot. And that was how I discovered that I like carbines. I like short rifles. They don't have as much reach, they don't have as much power, but man, are they just an absolute delight to shoot. So thanks for watching, folks. Appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. I do want to point this out. My muskets, my muzzleloader here, this was a long rifle. I'm currently in the process of converting it to a shorter one because it was damaged. And now that it's shorter, like, I used to like this thing a lot, but now that it's shorter, I really like it. Alright, I think I'm done with the video. I got a bunch of stuff in the mail, including milling machine stuff and some drill bits, so I'm gonna go play around. I think that I talked about how I like this shorter thing better. I do. I like it now that it's shorter. I really like now that it's shorter. Bye.
I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.